All right, section 3.1, we just had a little discussion about these things, and we said that two lines in the same plane that do not intersect, watch, here's a line right here. I just copied and pasted, so it's going in the same direction. Two lines right here. They're two different lines, but they're not going to intersect each other. Okay, they will never touch. This line keeps on going, right? A line doesn't start and stop, because some people say, well, what about this one and this one? Right? Those two things, they don't touch each other. Yeah, but we're not talking about line segments, are we? What if this was a line? What if that kept on going? What would it do? It would intersect, wouldn't it? So are they parallel lines? No, they're not. They're not parallel lines. But these, if I took this line and I kept on going forever this way, and I took this line and I went forever both ways, would they ever touch each other? No, they wouldn't. Okay? So we call those parallel lines. They have to be in the same plane, all right? They're both sitting on this, it's not really paper, I don't even know what you would call it, okay? But it's sitting on the flat surface, okay? And they'll never touch each other. We call those parallel lines. Watch. Skew would be two lines that don't intersect in different planes, right? If they're in different planes, they would be called skew lines. But we're gonna be more parallel lines is what we're going to talk about more often than not. All right, so parallel lines. Look how we spell it. P-A-R-A-L-L. Two L's first, then one L at the end. Everybody got that? All right, so just one R, not two R's. I've seen it spelled all kinds of different crazy ways. All right, it's parallel. P-A-R-A-L-L-E-L. Okay, two L's first, then one L second. Please spell it right. I'm not going to mark it wrong if you don't, but it's just, I just like people to spell things correctly. All right, don't you? All right, parallel lines. All right, we talked about skew lines, parallel lines. Let's get into a little bit more. Today we're just learning basically vocabulary. All right, we're not really going to do any real math today. We're just learning what words are. But these words are important because you'll be tested. You'll have quizzes on this stuff. So the stuff we're doing right now and these words that I'm going to use are words that you will need to know. All right? What's that? We're going to talk about it as we do it out. You don't have to copy it directly. Just do what I do. All right? Is there another question? I thought somebody else had their hand raised. All right. Look at this right here. Now, we did talk about parallel lines, but really, to tell you the truth, today we're not really going to talk too much about parallel lines. Tomorrow, we're going to have a situation like this where we actually have two parallel lines. Does this line and this line, do they even look parallel? No, because if this thing kept on going, again, people look at it and say, oh, they don't touch each other. This line and this line don't touch. But they would eventually, wouldn't they? Because a line, remember, keeps on going in both directions. So eventually, yeah, they'd touch way out here somewhere, wouldn't they? All right? But they don't. It doesn't look like they touch here. But these are not parallel lines. This is just any two lines. All right? They don't have to be parallel for what we're doing today. We'll call this line L and call this line M. We'll call this line up here line T. Now this line right here, what does it do? It intersects. Good. It intersects line L and line M, doesn't it? If you have a line that intersects two or more lines, we call that line a transversal. So I'm going to put a little arrow here, and let's write that word out. Transversal. We're going to use that word quite a bit. All right, transversal. I think trans means like go across, like if you say transcontinental railroad. Anybody hear that? Like in history class, did you learn about the transcontinental railroad? Transport, right? Going from one place to another, going across the country or something, something like that. Trans. I don't know. I didn't look up the formal definition. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But what does it do? It goes across these two lines, doesn't it? It intersects these two lines. That's transversal. Amber, you had a question? There's no specific definition. I'm not going to have you memorize a definition or anything, but it's just a line that intersects two or more other lines. I don't know if that's the official definition. It's in the book if you want, but I don't care. We just want to know what it is, what it does, all right? So transversal crosses this line and this line right here. Everybody with me? All right. Again, I told you, today's pretty much all vocabulary. Now what we're going to do is this. Let's change colors here. These two lines in this transversal form a whole bunch of different angles here, don't they? So let's number the angles. Call that 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll call this one down here 5, 6, 7, and 8. Everybody with me? Now we're going to learn some names of some of these angles, the relationships between some of the pairs of the angles. All right? And you're going to say, well, why do I have to know those names? Because we're going to talk more specifically about these names, and we're going to use it a lot. In fact, my last class, we did it today. We're just finishing chapter 3 in the honors class, and we still are using these names of these angles, okay, all the way to the end of the chapter. So this is really important stuff. All right, I want you to look at this. Do you see how this group of 4 angles are all kind of clumped together? And then you got a group of 4 angles down here that are kind of clumped together. Look at the ones that are kind of in the same spot, in the same place, that correspond to each other. Look at angle 1. Which angle down here in this clump kind of matches up with angle 1? Angle 5, doesn't it? All right. What about angle 2? What would you say? 6. See how angle 1 is in the top left-hand corner of this group of 4? Which one's in the top left-hand corner down here? Angle 5 would be. Do you see it? All right. What about angle 2? It's in the top right-hand corner, so 6. What about 3? 7. And 4? 8. Do you see it? See how they're kind of in the same spot? They match up with each other? We call those corresponding angles. And let's do this in a darker color. Okay, we call these corresponding angles. Write this down because you're going to need to know this. You're going to need to be able to write down corresponding angles, because I'll say angle 1 and 5. What's the relationship between angle 1 and angle 5? And what would you say? They are what? Corresponding angles. Very good. And I put the little angles. That's an ugly angle. They're the ones that kind of match up with each other. Just be able to recognize. There's no like formal definition for this. Just recognize which ones are corresponding angles. All right. So let's list them. Angle 1 and actually let's not even put an and in there. Let's just put a comma. Angle 1 and what are corresponding angles? Which one do we say is corresponding to angle 1? 5. So let's put a 5 right here. Now I didn't say anything about them being equal or anything like that, did I? All I'm doing is I'm just recognizing the names, the relationship. Write that down somewhere. I'm finding the relationship between these angles. Everybody understand? So if I say, what's the relationship between angle 1 and angle 5, you would say they are corresponding angles, right? So if I said, Amber, if I said, what's the relationship between you and Ashley, what would you say? You are sisters, right? Or twins, whatever. Okay, you are sisters. So what is the relationship between angle 1 and angle 5? They are what? Corresponding angles. Okay, that's the relationship between them. Okay, all right. Let's list the other ones. We can do this pretty quick now. Angle 2 and angle what?
6.
How about 6? Right. Angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding angles. Do you see? You understand why they match up? Because 2 is in that top right-hand corner of this clump of angles. 6 is in this top right-hand corner of that clump of angles. You see it? What about angle 3? And 7, good. And angle 4 and 8. So all I'm doing is writing down the relationship between those angles. They're called corresponding angles. 1 and 5 are corresponding. 2 and 6, 3 and 7, 4 and 8. They are all corresponding angles. Is 1 and 8 corresponding? No, they're in different spots, aren't they? 1 is in the top left-hand corner, and 8 is in this very bottom right-hand corner. They don't correspond to each other, do they? These are all the corresponding angles. Make sense?